So we'll move on swiftly to the Q&A so we have enough time to answer some questions. The first question we have is for Lisa about Breathe Illo. And the question is, can Breathe predict hormonal derived or cycle derived depression through breath?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I can't really answer it because we haven't studied this or researched in this field, but I would guess no, actually, because I mean, we can see that there is stress in the breath, because if a woman really breathes faster, then we can see that she's stressed, but with depression, I don't think so.
Thank you. I hope that answered someone's question. And then a kind of bigger question was around the idea that there's real silos in data. So that, you know, there's all of these FemTech companies and they're collecting data, but often they don't share those data sets. And how is it possible to validate and correct that data? Larissa, I wondered if you maybe had something on that in terms of like a more medical perspective around how we should be sharing data. And if not, then I'll ask Lisa as well.
It's okay. You kind of froze for me. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. It's a question. My internet, I think it keeps saying it's unstable. So just wave at me if
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm in Costa Rica today. So I tried to book in on my vacation. Sorry.
Don't make us jealous. So the question was around like sharing data, and kind of should FemTech companies share data and use that for more like valid research, I guess.
Do you mean between, like, I just want to make sure, end user and, oh, okay, as far as sharing data.
Like almost like a universal database.
Yes, but with certain restraints. I think that's very important, because privacy issues have been very much a whole of even a couple of FinTech companies and other companies in general. So anytime you're dealing with private information or personal information, it needs to be disclosed how it's going to be used, when it's going to be used, what particular areas of research, and it's all about full disclosure. And it's when it comes to patient or client information, that's very, very vital.
Agreed. And I think, yeah, there have been some data issues in the FemTech space more recently, so that's really key. Yeah, Lisa, do you have anything on that about kind of sharing data, or how do you use the data that you collect with Breathe?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we get it asked a lot because it is really also a trust thing for the people using our devices and the apps, because you said it before, there were a lot of issues. So we are making everything completely clear about our data. We don't give it to any third party. I mean, it's also not allowed in the European Union, and we are relying here really on the law side. I'm also the data specialist by myself, and because we are in a medical field, we also need to have one in the company. So yeah, so we are really sensitive with our data. I mean, if a woman actively wants to share it with other apps or with their doctors or anything, she has it in her own hands, and I think this is important too.
Yeah, definitely. I think the security element's so vital, but I feel like there's so much good data in the FemTech space. If researchers and kind of women's health specialists could look into that, it might move stuff forward. Susan, I wonder if like in terms of kind of design and marketing and all of that kind of stuff, user data is useful in any way. Would you recommend that to kind of meet women where they are?
Absolutely. And I just want to echo what Dr. Ferdinand said. Like, we definitely need to take considerations in terms of privacy. It's definitely something that we've betrayed a lot of consumers' trust, like even just looking at Facebook, et cetera. For us at High Ivy, like the kind of data that we're collecting, like we're going into Health Canada and FDA approvals and looking at clinical studies and collecting subjective and objective data, which is and when I say subjective, we're talking about, like, again, meeting them where they are. Where are they emotionally? What needs do they have? And using this kind of data to be able to see potential correlations. I think right now, when just going back to your previous question, one thing I'd be so interested in, like, obviously a bunch of these FemTech companies can't share all the personal data and kind of what they've collected, but I would love to see some sort of database about, like, what companies in FemTech have come together to conduct their own clinical studies and what have those outcomes been. I think, like, bringing that together is really interesting because obviously like in a lot of cases, private companies are pushing research forward faster and with more vigor than we've seen in the last 100 years.
Yeah, I think it's like an incredible way to kind of plug the gender data gap for sure. Mark, I can see you nodding there, and I wonder, if you want to come in on this point, how are you using your data? How are you kind of conducting research with it?
This is a very important factor for us. In the first place, having the security. On the other hand, being able to get the data with the user's permission and use it for medical trials internally, or sharing the part that we have permission with the universities, and exchanging anonymous data so we can basically do something about it and get something meaningful out of the data that we have. So as Susan mentioned, we need to collaborate on that, and probably based on the new laws that we see in the European Union, on one hand, we need to see the same regulatory in the US, because right now we don't have that. And on the other hand, we need more support from probably educational institutions, so we can share those data under some supervision, probably from them, educational institutions, so we can get something meaningful for the user at the end of the day.
Completely agree. I think there's so much more that can be done in terms of partnerships with academia. And I really, the question was talking about silos, and I feel like there's such a big silo between academia and FemTech, and such a need to draw those together. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so I'm going to wrap up really quickly, but big round of applause to all of our panelists. So insightful. I feel like I've gained so much knowledge this evening. So thank you for your time and your contributions. Just to wrap up and say that we can see that FemTech is such an incredible space and is so much more than periods and pregnancy, even though it incorporates that as well. And I think some key takeaways from today is that, like, women's health is still really, really under-researched. And as much as we try and plug that gender data gap with the amazing resources we have through FemTech companies, it's not enough currently, and there's so much more that we can do to move away from this male-centered healthcare design framework. Also, I think we've seen that stigma and taboo is a huge issue, and the impact that that has on education amongst women and their ability to access services and know to access services, because they just don't, as Rachel said, they can't often label their vagina or their vulva, and just have incredible difficulty talking about those things as well. So I'm really grateful for all of our panelists and the kind of change and the waves that they're making in all of those points. Please feel free to look through the chat. People's LinkedIn profiles are there, and you can follow them and connect with them there. But otherwise, big round of applause again, and thank you all so much for attending.
Great. Well, just a couple of words from me. We would like to extend our great thanks to all of the panelists and the moderator. I think it's very important that we're drawing attention to women's health, and we intend to continue our series of free webinars as well as open access analytical reports. It's been very inspiring to hear our speakers today. I personally learned a lot, and we would like to have collaborations with panelists or audience, anyone interested in the topic. We will be launching FemTech SPV
in a month or so, and we'll be investing in companies, and we're opening for discussions and collaborations in that regard. And with that, thank you very much. We will have a recording of this webinar, and we welcome everyone's feedback. And thank you, Terry, panelists, audience, and we'll see each other in not so long, hopefully.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.